Thank you for being here. I will ask that you please bear with me because, of course, I got a little bit of a hoarse voice going on, but I will do my best, and I'm very excited to be talking about how the cloud can help productivity for manufacturing. We're going to go over a few things. I know it's only half an hour, and we could be talking about this for a very long time, but first I wanted to align on the concept of smart factory and its ecosystem, and then go a little bit deeper into some of the usual use cases that we can see that it helps with, and then go straight into SaaS with additional details and finish with a customer story. What do I mean when I talk about smart factory? If we think at a high level of a plant, a process, all the way from receiving of raw materials to your packaged finished goods that may be shipped, maybe stored in a warehouse, then we think about smart factory as a set of tools or a toolkit that can help you improve certain things, such as achieve greater consistency for your process, have higher quality for your products, optimize your consumption, overall improve your production. Now, this does not exist in a vacuum, and there's different things that are linked to it. It could be other solutions that are in place, of course, security, things such as advanced analytics, supply chain. Once you have your smart factory, you're collecting data from your machines, from your plant floor, then you want to be able to view it, to analyze it. It could involve reporting and dashboards. And of course, you're going to be collecting all that data in a way that it makes sense for you to be able to get those outcomes. You're connecting and getting the data, like I mentioned, from your level 2. So smart factory, let's start thinking about that combination of your SCADA. Maybe you have automated batching or historian. And in addition to that, you would have your manufacturing execution system, for example, at the level 3, potentially advanced analytics, like we see to the left, or advanced scheduling. And you may need to integrate to something like your level 4, an ERP. You may be interested in warehouse management, maintenance systems, all sorts of things. And now, why is this important? In order to be able to improve productivity, you want to make sure that you're looking at the overall picture and taking all of this into consideration. And here you can see the roles that are involved with all these different functions. Regarding the use cases themselves, things that we see clients come to us to help with using smart factory are things such as planning and scheduling, right? You have your planners, they get everything set up, you get to the plant floor Monday morning, 5 of the variables that you used to create that plan no longer apply or have changed significantly. So you need to be able to accommodate. And the idea, as I go through all of this, is what can we do to stop being so reactive and maybe start being a little bit more proactive? What scheduling and planning can help you do is things such as be able to, using different variables, different changes, see different scenarios, how those could come out, what the output could be. It could be that your inventory is not going to be arriving on Tuesday, but on Friday instead. What would that look like? What would it look like if you had 2 instead of 3 or 4 resources managing a given line? And this can help both manage your resources, which are considered both people and machine. A big one, of course, is execution, that at a high level clearly includes or is linked to all of this in here. So we can talk about work orders and work instructions. So being able to be on the floor and look at the steps that you need, have them right in front of you, know exactly what's next, what came before, and be able to get ready. Genealogy and tracking, worst case scenario, food industry, right, is a recall probably. The idea here is, if we think of the previous slide, all the way from the very beginning to the end of your process, you can keep track of where your product was at a given time. Quality management. This one is a big one. If we think about first time right, what do we need to know, which parameters about what you're producing to know that the end product is going to be of high quality? This can allow you to do things such as keeping track of temperature values through sensors in different units, or it could be samples that you're taking from your product as it's been manufactured. And maybe you can assign certain values or specifications to those variables, and you know your target is 80, but if the value goes above 100 or below 60, then you can alarm, and you can send this alarm to a person or a group of people so that they can take the necessary actions. And again, how can we start working more with higher digitization, less paper, more near real-time data so that we can make decisions? Performance management, if we think about execution, we're thinking maybe about an operator role. If we're thinking about quality management, we can think about your lab operators. And then performance management, maybe we can think of a supervisor role. In this case, you can think of having something like a dashboard where a supervisor can go in and take a look at different metrics and see what is going on the plant floor on a given day. And it could be your OEE, so you're talking about your downtime, your quality, your performance, which machines are down, when are they going to be back up, do we need to get maintenance involved, be able to deal with all those things. Regarding analysis and analytics, once you have your data connectivity to your machines, once you are able to visualize it and massage it through something like your MES, then how can we go one step further and no longer be looking at maybe that last 6 months of your downtime, what happened there, how it trended, but saying something like, because I'm following these variables and I see these values, I can predict that within the next X amount of time, line 9 is going to be down. So these 6 cases are very much things that the smart factory usually helps with. Now, smart factory comes in a few flavors. And there's some considerations when we're talking about specifically SaaS. There's solution capabilities, platform capabilities, infrastructure, total cost of ownership, and solution lifecycle. I'm not going to delve too much into the solution lifecycle, but I have been talking about the solution capabilities, mostly focusing on smart factory. But again, scheduler is what we would call an advanced scheduling tool, and historian is what you can use to keep track or record of the history of your data. And all of those would work together. Now, regarding platform capabilities, the idea is that using something like the cloud, you can allow your staff to be more productive and to focus on more value-added activities instead of server acquisition or procurement or maintenance. You're able to get enhanced business agility and better operational resilience. Regarding the infrastructure, total cost of ownership, and I'll go a little bit deeper into this ones in the next slides, we will talk about what the owner is responsible for versus what, in this case, a cloud vendor would be responsible for, and how that diverges between different models of deployment. Regarding the capabilities themselves, there is a lot of improvement that we can get from a SaaS deployment versus other deployments. Historically, they have been, of course, on-prem. Scalability and availability is a top-of-mind one. Scalability because with things now available such as a multi-site implementation, it means that you can have a cloud server where you can have several sites all together. Now this means you're not going to have to acquire the servers, wait for them, maybe have delays because they're not getting to you on time. This means that if you can, let's say you have 13 plans, you start with your first one on a server, you configure it, you set it up, you have it up and running, you create a template. Maybe these different plans have a very similar or the same process. Now, the template may be 80% valid, 70% valid, but it helps you so that you can quickly deploy the remaining ones and then enhance the development as needed. It also helps to provide some digital guardrails. What this means is you may have a similar process, but these different plans without having some sort of safeguard mechanism can have different ways of implementing this process, and that can cause inconsistencies or variability in the output of or your product. Regarding monitoring and notification, again, going back to the concept of being more proactive, when some vendor is providing cloud service, software as a service, then you have the possibility or the opportunity to have monitoring. What this means is that it could be as simple, if you will, as storage, right? You get a notification, you're running low on storage, you're able to act upon it versus waiting until something happens and trying to figure out, reverse engineer what went wrong and why your server is down. Customization and integration. Most smart factory software, once it's implemented, once you start going through the project itself, requirements gathering, functional design documents, it's not going to be 100% out of the box. Now, the degree of out of the box will depend on what the needs and requirements are. Now, this enables you to have customization or to extend the functionality and to be able to also integrate to other systems, like I mentioned before, whether it is an ERP, whether it is a warehouse management system. Oftentimes, the need is to have, we talked about process orders, maybe your process orders or work orders coming from your ERP, maybe your bill of materials, etc. Then security and compliance, another big one. There's a lot that goes into that, but being able to have someone oversee things as making sure that you are up to date with any patches, making sure that things such as potential vulnerabilities with API calls are being looked into, and all of that is being done for you. And this is an interesting one that I referenced a little bit ago, which is different deployment models for smart factory. Historically, traditionally, on-premise was the way to go. And you can see that absolutely everything in there was managed by the solution owner. So you would have to get your own servers, you have to determine which OS you are going to go with, networking, storage, virtualization, all of it. In the middle there, we have cloud VPC, or it would be having your own cloud versus software as a service. In this case, you're kind of half and half. Some of this is still managed by the solution owner, but then some of it is managed by the cloud provider, and you can see those bottom ones are it. Now, for software as a service, all of it is managed by your solution provider. So the servers are set up and spec'd out for you. The software is installed. Any updates that you may need are done. And the way this works is there's bigger and smaller, right, updates or upgrades. Let's say you have a monthly sort of patching schedule. Then you would have something like a dev environment where your patching is pushed, you get time to test it. once you give the go-ahead, then this could be moved to your production, and you make sure that you're always up to date. Now, why does it matter? Why does it matter to know what smart factory encompasses? Why does it matter to know the different ways in which it can be implemented? Why SaaS specifically? There's a few reasons why SaaS is beneficial if we think about it in comparison to the other deployment models. Single source of truth for your data. You have everything you need in those servers. Faster time to value. I talked about scalability. I talked about being able to configure your first server, your first site, and being able to scale quite rapidly. Increased visibility on enterprise performance. Again, historically, you would have data for different sites. There wouldn't necessarily be an easy way to be able to roll this data up into more of an enterprise view. And as business, everything becomes more connected, more global. This is something that we hear a lot about, and this is something that SaaS can enable you to have. Replicating best-in-class practices across sites, fleet, and enterprise. This is something also that I referred to when I was mentioning if you don't have certain guardrails, even though you may have similar processes, there may not be an easy way to enforce that things are being done a certain way. And this is something that this kind of deployment can help with, having those templates and that scalability. Always current with zero downtime. It's still near zero downtime. Zero downtime should be coming in the next few months. But the idea here being that you get your patches, you're able to be up and running and not having to see disruption with your system. Modern analytics with AI, and we know AI is such a buzzword, but how can it actually help manufacturers, food manufacturers in particular? There's different ways, and always the first step is have your data, have a significant amount of data, have your data structured in a given way that it will make sense, and then you can start playing around with things such as this. One of the ones that I mentioned, for example, which is now coming out of the box, would be downtime, predictive downtime. So you would be able to figure out things before they happen regarding your machines being down. And there's additional work that is being done to have more and more of this. Cost reduction and performance improvement, like I said earlier, we're monitoring the servers just because you don't have to have 30, let's say 15 servers, you can have one and have 15 sites. That also plays into the cost aspect of projects and implementations. And increased security, again, there's standards that have to be followed, and there's third-party verifications of this, how this is accomplished. So all of this is also thought and taken care of. Prophecy Smart Factory delivers real value. We go back to that original or first slide, and what does this mean for actual improvement of plant operations? Usually, there's different KPIs that are picked, and if we think about how the project starts, oftentimes we meet with customers and we talk about what is the current state. We go through plant visits and talk to operators and talk to supervisors and talk to quality lab operators. We learn about their practices and their processes and their culture and sit down with a better understanding of their current state. We talk about the desired end state and where the gap is and what makes sense with the resources that are available and the timeline and the cost. And oftentimes certain KPIs are picked so that you can measure them after the project has been implemented. Increased throughput is one of them. Reduced downtime is another. Improvement of efficiency and quality, as well as energy reduction. This is one slide that I like quite a bit because all the theory is great, But when you go and try to actually implement these projects, there is a lot going on and a lot that you need to take into consideration and be aware of. And what are the secrets to successful project implementations? Developing, I would say, first of all, I would start with just making sure you understand the current state, the desired end state, the gap, and you can look down some KPIs that can be afterwards measured. But once you've done this, develop a comprehensive migration strategy. What does this mean? Do you already have any implementation? Is it mostly out of the box? Is it highly custom? Is it integrated into other systems? Would you rather port that over as is, or are you thinking that it needs to be updated? All of these things, because that will help you determine the resources that you need, the time frame that you need, is there any training that needs to happen because there's going to be changes, all of those things that can be added. Any of these things otherwise ends up adding additional time to the schedule, additional costs, and that's what you're trying to avoid. Conducting thorough cost-benefit analysis, and of course, cost is extremely important, and there's ROIs, right, that you have to be able to communicate what you're doing, how that's going to reflect value into the business. But I would say one thing that I found very interesting here is it's a very important part, but what are the other parts that will help you determine your decision around this cost? I've worked with clients where maybe they had a couple of options, and one of the options was to develop in-house, and another option was to have us as a vendor of a SaaS solution. And we worked on what the cost would look like depending on different factors and maybe different scopes. And once we had determined that cost, we started digging deeper into how about risk? How about the fact that software maturity. This software has been around and implemented all over the world for over 35 years. You're not going to have surprises or a missing functionality. You know exactly what you're getting. You don't have to wait for it. It's already there for you. How about having a network of service providers or integrators and training available to you and your employees? All of those things in the end made it so that they actually decided to go with us because they saw that in addition to the cost evaluation, all of these other things ultimately added to less risk. Identify skill gaps and invest in training resources partners. That's another thing. And I will add to this, let's not wait until we are ready to train to involve the people that we need. We need internal champions. We need users. We want them to be involved early on. Requirements, design. We don't want to get to user testing or training and have feedback that we would have much better had at the very beginning. So let's make sure that we invest in training, that people know how to use and how this will benefit them. We're not just adding technology for the sake of adding technology. It should make their job more efficient or easier, or it should be able to allow different resources at different levels of the organization to get better data for them to make decisions. Now this links into the focus on change management. You can have a fantastically designed system. You can have a great execution. If the users are not willing to adopt it, it's going to be of absolutely no use to you. And that's why I was saying, let's make sure that people are engaged and involved and that it makes sense to them. And this is not only the executive sponsorship, which is very important, but make sure you're communicating as you go along and things change and that things still make sense to those people who are going to be involved. Implement robust cloud security measures. Like I mentioned, you want to have control of access, you want to have compliance monitoring, you want to be able to take a look at things such as vulnerabilities and have a plan for all of this. Plan for integration challenges. This is a good one. Like I mentioned at the very beginning, this is important because your smart factory does not live in a vacuum. And oftentimes you may get to a certain part of the project and realize that, well, but I get my quality data from a LIMS system, or I get my processory data from ERP. So you want to make sure that you put in the work ahead of time of determining what does this mean. Do you need only one direction communication? Do you need bidirectional? Do you need this to be triggered? Does it need to be pulled? Where is your source of truth if you have information in different systems? How do they get updated? How do they keep in sync? All of these things, again, we go back to avoiding schedule delays, avoiding not having the right resources or the time to do it, or this increasing cost. Establishing proper governance, metrics, and monitoring. Anytime we start a project, the idea is, in our case, we have customer success managements. How can we help make this project successful from the very get-go? Like I mentioned, once we determine what we want to work on, how are we going to measure it? One way that I've seen this done, for example, is pretty straightforward as having a dashboard. So let's say a given client decided that OEE would be what they wanted to measure, and specifically reduction in downtime by an X percentage. So what was done was a dashboard was developed, and there was a baseline value, and it was tracked over, I believe, 6 months. And you could see it trending, and you could see if the addition of the system and the updates that were made were helping that number or not. But you had a way, not only you had the KPI, but a way to measure it. That was very important. Now, how does all of this help particular users? In this case, we have the case of Papa John's, or the success story. They recently adopted our SaaS software or service. Now, an important key here is that they have already been with a cloud-first mentality. And what this means is they already recognize that they did not want to have an extended IT team dealing with things such as maintenance, such as server acquisition, and so on and so forth. They currently did not have it. And what they had was different sites that make fresh dough every day, never frozen. And they wanted to make sure that they were doing it consistently, that they were having, since the process that they were following was very manual, very paper-based, a lot of challenges with human error. They did not have real-time data. They had to do things very reactively, and this led to operational inefficiencies. And if I know this will be sent out, but if you have about 4 minutes, that's a really nice video of them, and as well as GE and the integrator going over this experience and how it helped. But at the end of the day, it helped them by not having to deal with any of this maintenance or server specification. All of this was done for them. It allowed them to have that scalability that otherwise would have been very hard for them to achieve. And this started with a pilot, but now they're enabled to go to new sites in 4 to 6 weeks. It allows them to have that near real-time data visibility and be able to make decisions as needed and have a better operational efficiency. And to close out, I can't believe I'm doing good time. Now, why adopt cloud? The idea here is, again, at a very high level, are you looking to have a way to access these improvements in traceability, compliance, agility, or operational efficiency in a way that enables you to reduce your IT complexity and enable innovation? Then cloud is a good option. Thank you all very much. think there's time for some questions. I don't know if.
Any questions for you?
Oh, there's one.
Thank you very much for what you shared. I found it super helpful. Just to, so obviously you've made the case for why cloud. The question I would have is, what would be the disadvantages to going towards a cloud system? Why wouldn't a company want to do that?
I would say, I don't know if disadvantages, but there's definitely different things. One of them could be the complexity if you have a current solution versus you're trying to implement something new and you have something that's very complex that would take a lot of time and effort to port over. That could be a consideration. If you already have a large in-house team that takes care of your software needs, then that's another thing. You already have people that with assigned roles to take care of the similar functions. Those I would say are two things that I can think of right off the top of my head, but I would say it's more not why not use SaaS, but your given situation may have components that may make it just take a little bit longer.
How have you worked to overcome the cases where the, say, operations, engineering, manufacturing, they want the data, right? Quality group, they want the data, they want to process it. But at the corporate level, sometimes you run into IT and cybersecurity issues. So you've got your folks in the plant, they need this data to improve, yet you've got the challenges with the IT, cybersecurity, the concerns with data coming in and out of the plant. How have you worked around those challenges?
So I would say one of the things is early on making sure that you have your different contacts at the different levels of the organization and your different champions. You want, when I was saying this is very collaborative and I was talking about operators, for example, it's the same thing. You have to have your IT aligned and you have to have them involved. And a lot of it has been communication. They need to understand, why do we need to do this if this could potentially be something that we don't necessarily want to do. So I think it's just showing that you know what you're talking about, that if you are asking for something, it's for a reason, and proving that ultimately the benefit would outweigh whatever is seen as a challenge at that time. I'm not saying it's easy.
I think we're at time now.
All right, well, thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.